Boom! And we are live, finally. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another one of our illustrious industry chats. Today we have Johan Torreson of Raw Fury, a bit of a dear friend. And I don't know, how's it going? It's very late where you are. I apologize.
No,
Tenfold.
don't worry about it. Things are going quite well so far. I think it's 1 a.m. Is that the American word for late at night?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's technically the term for early morning. But
Oh yeah.
I
True, true.
mean, it depends on how you define. Where does the
Yeah,
night
no,
end?
but yeah, no, it's a little bit late, but it's not too bad. I've had my coffee. I've set myself up with a small glass of wine, uh, the size
Cheers.
of a fucking hand,
Cheers.
apparently.
Cheers.
Yeah,
Cheers.
cheers. And it's always nice to catch up a little bit.
Yeah,
And
it's been a bit of a minute and a half since we've had a little sit down chat.
yeah,
Uh,
dude. Last time I think the last I saw of you, you were sitting beneath a tree at a church in Karlshamn reading a book, and then I had to go and fucking sort something.
yeah, that might be right.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's always exciting.
yeah, cool. So, welcome everybody else in the chat. I know everybody's still pouring in. So, I mean, I guess tell the people what you do. I could tell them, but I mean, you'll do a better job explaining who the hell you
Yeah,
are.
no,
Why should they give a damn
absolutely.
what you have to say?
No, I run scouting together with David Martinez for Raw Fury, and yeah, thing or developer any sort of external facing. Oh shit, am I lagging hard?
I lagged a little bit there.
All right, voice as well.
Just a bit. Hold on.
Okay, yeah, you just make a noise and start waving your hands.
Will do.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I basically my job is to look at what's out there and play a lot of games, talk to a lot of developers, and try to enable people to do cool shit by giving them money and support, which is really nice. And that's the best part of the job. And then the 99.99 part is the sorry, we're not gonna be working together part of the job.
Yeah, I mean, you can even if you are, I mean, and it wasn't fully explained, but Raw Fury is a games publisher, and even if you are working with a sizable publisher, like the number of opportunities that you can actually take on, is limited, always limited, right? Not just by money, but by I guess time and like resources, manpower, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean there's 12 months in a year. There's only so much stuff you can put out without either cannibalizing on your own stuff, and also just general like bandwidth internally. Like people are working a lot at every sort of release. To be able to do that.
Oh, laggy. Sorry, gang.
We need to have some time.
Hold on. Let me try and I'm gonna see if I can get the internet a little bit better on our end.
In between things, getting them open a door. I'm the Swedish internet. Otherwise, I think I'm fairly up to snuff.
Yeah, it says I'm pretty solid on my end, unless Jane's eating up data.
No, it's probably my end.
Well, we are very far apart, also.
Yeah, I did a thing, and I'm also like my home office is absolute like disaster when it comes to the internet part because my source of internet is in the polar opposite side of the apartment. And this computer does not take an Ethernet cable. But I think I've managed to clear a line now, a little bit at least.
No Twitch. It's not your Wi-Fi. It's Empress. It's not yours. It's ours. It's our situation.
Sorry.
No, that's cool. But yeah, so always a limited bandwidth, in, not just in money, but in time and resources and manpower and all that stuff. So in terms of like getting with all of those resources having to be allocated to a project, I presume you have to get like most of the company on board with the project, right?
Yeah, for sure. No, it's basically we are grown quite a bit, so we're quite a few people. But the way we are structured right now is in like a cell structure, where we have almost like sub-labels on a record company. So we have 4 different cells, and all of them contain, you know, a game producer, release producer, quality producer, a sales producer, and a PR person, and a brand manager. And then we have other roles as well, kind of like on the top, a bit more globally spread. And all of these different cells can take on whatever game interesting. So I don't need to pitch, you know, the 50 people don't need to sign off. But I do need to get like a sizable amount of people excited for whatever we sign, because and that's not like, it's not like, oh no, it doesn't have enough followers on Twitter. It's really, I don't want to sign something to a group of people that aren't as excited about the project as the developers are.
Right.
Because you're going to be spending, 16 months, 20 months with these people, and you, as a developer, you wouldn't want to work with someone who's, moderately interested in what you do.
No, yeah, that can definitely be something that like really kills your spirit as a dev. Like,
Yeah.
Especially if it's people that you need approval from for a lot of things. So one thing I am curious about is like, I know that as a dev, there's a lot of work that has to go into getting that final pitch to the customer making sense, right? Like condensing that, what makes your game cool and interesting. And I'm curious how much condensation, I guess, has to go into like getting the what you see raw from the dev into getting it into the company first. Like I understand it's probably a trickle down path from like dev's got this crazy idea, then it like condenses a little bit in the process of explaining it to the company, and then again it condenses into explaining it to the final customer. But
it's we're basically a company of veterans. I think most people more time in industry than I do, and I have 7 years, something like that. And it's actually not that much like condensation that needs to happen. What usually is that I will read and play and touch everything that comes in, every single game and every single deck. And when I start pitching it around, maybe if it's like a 70-page game design document, not everyone will read that. I will usually have, but most people will trust when I say that it's good, and B, they will play it. So most of the weight, or most of the decision making happens based on the build.
right.
Like, how is it fun to play? Does it feel good to work with this? Is it and that can be different things for different games, of course. But basically, it's, does this
Does this
on what to do, and as a quality, can it capture the spirit of what they're trying to do in some way, shape, or form?
Right. It cut out a little bit there, but so if the build can quickly capture the spirit of what it's trying to do, then
Yeah,
things are smooth.
yeah. I mean, if it's a narrative game, and it's not fun to make choices, or if it's not fun to engage with the story, then it doesn't matter how pretty it is, because that's not what the game is about. And if you make a platformer, but there's no sense of weight to the character moving in the world, and there's no like oomph in the jumps, it's not fun to traverse space, then you failed, because that's not gonna, it doesn't matter how well written the story is, or how fun it looks. If it doesn't feel good, then you're fucked.
Now it's interesting. You specifically are only talking about pitches in terms of their build. Uh,
Yeah.
how often do you get pitches that do not include a demo?
Quite often, but that doesn't matter, because they only get an email back saying that's nice, but I
Right.
can't do anything without a build.
Right. What yeah, like that's one thing I've noticed runs rather rampant among people is the desire to communicate. Like, so okay, I guess here's the question: what advice would you have? Let's say you are a person who has a really great idea, right?
Mm.
But you lack the talent, funds, or connections in order to get to that build status, right? I mean,
Mm.
I'm in complete agreement. It's really ridiculous to assume that a publisher would pick up a game without being able to show some sort of proof of concept.
I
But
mean, there are publishers that do that, but it's super easy to say that it will feel really good. It will have the jumping mechanics, the vibe of Super Mario Sunshine. It will feel like that.
it feels
I can say
accurate,
that,
right?
yeah, but saying that and getting a jump to feel like that, very, very different things.
Right. So
But yeah, to get them to a point where, like, if you're starting from a position where you're lacking funds and network and contacts and so on.
you are the ultimate idea guy, with no
Yeah,
connections. What do you do?
I mean, Twine to start with, if it's not a platformer. Like, if
Right.
you're doing a narrative thing, use like a easy, well, easy, a platform or an engine that enables you to sketch out something real quick that might catch someone's attention. If you can't do art or you can't code well, then you can use some of those things. If you can code a little bit, uh, fuck off to a game jam.
Right.
If it's either you do, an internet version of it, which is nice, or preferably you do a physical version of it, and you
One
don't go
day
in,
again.
yeah, at some point, uh, and you don't go in expecting to build, the thing you want to build. Just go there to meet people and build shit together and see if you can find someone you gel with. Start building up a group of people that you enjoy working with, and when that's if you strike out there, then that's good. Then you have people that can help you out with things. But also, if you absolutely don't want to code, absolutely don't want to like do anything, but like some lofty ass designer stuff, like high level stuff, and only do that, then I suggest you spend a lot of time building up your network and your understanding of business, so you can take on all the shit that other people think are boring.
Right. I mean,
Because
I've definitely met that guy at Game Jam though,
yeah,
who can contribute literally. I've probably almost been that guy before too, where you
yeah,
have very little skill, right? You can't do the code, you can't do the music, you can't do the art, but you've got a great idea, right? And it's even convincing people in the Game Jam setting is like just as perilous because those people are looking for talent as well. Um,
yeah. No, I mean, so. if you're going to game jam, like, do your fucking homework. Download an engine of some sort. Like, get RPG Maker, get Unity, or yeah, that's fucking great. Or get the Unreal Engine or whatever the fuck you want. Like anything, just put in. There's so much YouTube stuff. There's so much documentation and so much tutorials that if you're the ultimate idea guy and you actually honestly properly want to do this, that there's no fucking excuse. Like, there's no excuse to not be able to make a thing move in an engine.
Right.
You don't need to be the fucking, like, you don't need to be a savant of any sort. Just get something that makes you useful in the early stage.
So let's say I decide I'm going to be Idea Guy Plus, right? I've got my engine. I've watched a billion YouTube tutorials, and I finally got this prototype. It is so busted, and like back end, it's busted. It's janky. The code is like you can never make it compatible with things.
Yeah.
But when you actually play the experience, you can see the truth of it, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm basically paid to look at very broken things and then think, okay, so we add 20 months.
Right.
Yeah. And I'm not a burning version. I'm no Oracle or Stone Tablet, but my job is to figure out the like the ambition and the potential of whatever I have in my hands, and the probability of that actually being a thing in 20 months.
So my only question then is how realistic is it to, let's say, have a publisher like take on the project, scrap the entirety of what exists, and hire I guess it would have to be a hire in that point, hire more talented coders to get that vision to a more functional state rather than like letting that Idea Guy Plus,
Mm.
carry on, making more jank for another 20, 25 months.
Yeah, no, I mean, for us, it depends on whether or not that person wants to do that. We don't really fuck around with other people's companies. Wait, that's fine. I live on a street. Let's say that. So basically, if the person wants to hire people, we'll budget for it, and we can help find the people that would make sense. And that's probably a better way forward in many ways, because it's gonna be less friction for the person who really only wants to fucking build their thing anyways.
Right.
I don't think that it's a high likelihood of happening, but we definitely do finance teams that might be coming in like, well, we're 3 people and we built this thing. To build the thing that we're telling you about that we want to build, we need 3 more. And then we just budget for that and then find people and then they hire them. Usually they already know kind of like who they want to work with, so they can just bring them on, but those people can't commit because they have families and work and shit, which is, very fair. And when they have money, they can commit.
Right. And so like this is, I guess, what the point I'm trying to get to with this is like this is a very like perilous journey if you are nothing but an idea guy, right?
Yeah, no. If you're just an idea guy, you better start working on something to not be that person.
Right, because
it's not enough.
How many pitches do you get from people who are talented coders and have a decent idea?
Yeah, and that's gonna be the case at all times. Like even if you mean you can't unless you have the money or can finance it, you're never gonna get the job as an idea guy. That's job that you like in the industry. That's a job you earn over time, right? At some point, you have done enough cool shit that you end up in the position where you're like a game director or something, where you literally go, I have this idea, let's make this fucking thing. And then people go, yeah. And then you spend 2 years looking at other people's ideas about your idea, saying no and yes to them because there's no time for you to implement your own shit. And you, and you just become this like overlord, puppet master kind of thing, but you don't really, you know, it's a tough thing.
Right. So then, when it comes down to
To what?
the sorry, hold on one second. When it comes down to um,
The end, like when it comes down to brass tacks, or like if a pitch like that comes in.
yeah, what do you how do you, like, you never want to discourage people, right? Like, uh, oh,
That's
that's questionable.
well,
Okay.
yeah. It's not like you don't want to discourage people from doing a thing they like or thing they want to do, but it's also like you don't want to give people false hope. You don't want to send them out on weird paths unnecessarily. Like
Right.
you have to be honest with people, especially um, if it's something like you know I'm gonna spend 5 years building this thing. It's like, okay, so what are you building? It's like it's a World of Warcraft but with Call of Duty inside of it, and we're 4 people doing it, and that's not gonna happen.
Right.
Obviously, I'm not gonna say outright that's not gonna happen, but I will tell them that I don't think that this scope is feasible. Like for what you're telling me, I don't think that you're as a team you will be able to pull it off. But you're super welcome to prove me wrong because I'm just some fucking idiot with a beard who gets paid to look at things.
Right.
And that's about it. But it's always fucking messy with those things because it's on the one hand you wanna enable people to kind of like move forward with some sort of um, feedback that can help them out.
So
But
do you think that this, I mean, there is generally a message in the games industry that anybody can do this, anybody should try. Do you think that
it
is a toxic kind of ideology that's floated?
I think that that's not just the games industry though. I think that's literally any fucking industry where there's like unicorn style success. Any industry that has a breakout thing, whether it's music, football, games, because we all tell lies and stories about anyone can become the best football player if you just try hard enough, or because you see people coming from all over the world and becoming amazing football players, and we tell kids that if they grow up in America, you can be president one day.
Right.
Or we tell people that games, it's a bit of a lottery, so anyone can make it, and it's like anyone can definitely make it into the industry if they have if they want to do it, if they just spend the time. Obviously there's gonna be, and that is based on like the Western obviously part of things. There's definitely regions where it's immensely hard to break into the games industry, and there's underserved communities and countries and fucking regions where people are doing super cool shit that we are not talking about because it's, visibility is low, and we are generally focused on the next big spectacle. But if you have internet access, you can build something that's gonna take you somewhere. I'm sure. Then it might not happen still, because it's not a fair world, sadly.
Right. Do you think we have a lot of wasted potential?
Too much. I think that there's a ton of people that go into the games industry and end up doing. I mean, people get stuck, right? They get stuck with a decent job, doing a decent thing, and yada yada. But as with any fucking industry, there's super smart people with amazing ideas not doing anything with them. And that can be a structural thing, you need to have enough money to pay rent and eat and food and family and so on. And you're just, the safety of having that paycheck is going to be what brings you there. It can be general timing, and so on. But it's also, it's an industry that definitely burns people out. Like, people get burnt out over fucking crunch and whatnot at the large studios, and then people get burnt out because they want to live the indie dream, and then the indie dream is mostly just hard work upon hard work upon hard work, and then once every 4 years someone plays the thing that you made, and hopefully it makes enough money so you can go back to doing the hard work.
Right. No, that's honestly too true, too real.
Yeah.
It's and it's not getting any easier, right? Like,
I don't think it's not getting any easier. I think it's never the same. I think that there's a idea that it was, if you just fucking release the game in 2012, you would reach unicorn stardom because Steam opened up enough and Xbox Live Arcade opened up enough for you to get a game, and even if you weren't known, and that would end up with some sort of financial success.
I remember XBLA
Yeah.
a long time ago, but man, that really did open the door in a lot of ways.
Yeah, no, for sure. But I mean, you saw the same thing in 2002, right? When because 2002 is when Steam launched, right?
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but early 2000s. Because you suddenly, no one wanted to be on Steam, sure, but they put Half-Life 2 on there, and they put Counter-Strike on there, and started to get a group of people, and suddenly you didn't necessarily see indies popping in there immediately because they still had a rigid curation process. But you definitely saw AA studios that were relying on physical goods before switching over to digital and making $1 and being able to do cool shit for a while. And the same thing happened when digital distribution opened up for indies in a big way in 2012 with or earlier than that, but with XBLA and similar things. But it's also, it's not like the people that we are referring to as, the people that made it at that time. It's not like they weren't born 2010 and then they just happened to make a game in 2012 and then it just fucking, anyone who who thinks that haven't done their homework. We wouldn't have Super Meat Boy or Binding of Isaac without Dead Baby Dress Up. And Dead Baby Dress Up was,
Please explain.
it's it's an old Flash project from Edmund. I think. Like, let me fucking do a quick Google so I'm not like I'm not spewing shit. Dead Baby Dress Up. Don't Google this, kids.
While you Google.
Yeah, on Newgrounds from 2001.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. And Blue Baby, for example, from Binding of Isaac, is the baby you use for Dead Baby Dress Up. So
Right.
I mean, the people that got into the industry and got famous with, around that time made some cash. They had a fucking long career of working and doing their thing and honing their craft and their skill. And any industry where it looks like someone's coming out of the dark and just fucking getting a slam dunk, and then suddenly they're famous and money and cash, and you buy Beyonce's house and whatnot,
Right.
Any sort of industry that's like that, and any sort of industry that perpetuates the myth of that being, the overnight success, is a toxic industry. But it's also, up to people to fucking look critically at what we are talking about.
Yeah.
And don't buy the fucking hero tune or the hero story.
So, I've been meaning to get to the chat. Joseph brings up we haven't interacted with the chat too much.
Oh, sorry.
He says that he thinks if you like suffering and working and not having a life, then that's good game dev life. And then there's also been some conversation about like general crunch at the top end of the industry. Hey Joseph, sorry to ignore the chat. We were just in the middle of a very intense moment.
Sorry, I'll punch in the Twitch as well. It's Vagabond Dog, right? So I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't end up in some strange channel.
Yeah. No. Vagabond Dog. Vagabond Edge.
Well, so Joseph is another game dev that I've run into here on Twitch, and
nice.
It's interesting that you bring up the because a lot of people when they talk about crunch, right, like they almost exclusively talk about the big companies, grinding folks.
Yeah, but I mean, they have so. That's also one of those fucking things that annoys me a little bit, because, I mean that it's definitely prevalent in the AAA industry, because I've enough friends to know that it's not. It's like it's no fucking joke. But they also, most of the time, like they also have support systems in place. Like they
paychecks.
Paychecks and HR and shit like that. So even when that's bad and faulty and doesn't work really well, that's at least something there. Whereas if you're an indie developer and you're two people and you're grinding the shit out of something, you have a runway of 6 months, and you're heading into the 5th of those 6 months, and you're not nearly close to be able to fucking release your game, and you haven't started doing your marketing, and then you suddenly like, well, I guess I'm gonna have to do 36-hour days now.
So then the question I mean, maybe this is not is an unfair argument, but if it is if being in AAA, you get these levels of support, right? And those levels of support may never come for indies.
Yeah.
Right?
No. Yeah.
Is it anybody's responsibility to like consider that factor? Like a lot of arguments are often made against Steam or other platform holders, in terms of like discoverability and like accessibility of release and all these other concepts that will dramatically affect an indie's survivability and their long-term health. But in your opinion, is it anybody's responsibility but the indie themselves, even as hard as things may be?
So I think there are a couple of questions in there.
Yeah.
So
fair.
Does Steam have, or for example, does a platform have a responsibility to showcase basically what we would call, small developers or indies, or in many ways they're like small scale entrepreneurs, right? And I know that that's a bad word in some areas of the indie section, but it's your local falafel shop, it's
Right.
your corner store. um, it's people that are working for themselves, and without a lot of the support systems you get when you're part of a big franchise. If you're working for McDonald's, you know that McDonald's is not going to fucking die tomorrow. But if you're doing your falafel shop and you get sick, you can't work, that's a lot of money you're losing. The same thing goes with indies, I think. So I think that Steam has a responsibility to, if they want to have basically zero curation, they have a responsibility to build a platform that enables as many people as possible to find what they're looking for. But I don't think they have any specific responsibility to raise a certain group up. However, they for sure have a responsibility to not make it impossible for that group to be raised up. I mean, you see the stuff that has been happening with like how people, as soon as any platform changes up something in how they work, indies are 100% gonna figure out how to game that system to gain views or gain clicks in some way, shape, or form. Can be the prologue system on Steam, for example, and how that was used for a bit, or the coming next system that has been used. And before that, it was how to use Greenlight. Just stick in Greenlight for 6 fucking years, and just eat that shit as a coming soon. And that's fair. Like that's fair game, because that's the kind of the playground that the platform has built. And as long as you're using, as long as you're staying within those boundaries that they have made, they don't really have anything to complain about in my mind. But when it comes to responsibility to, if you're looking to do this for the paycheck, or if you're looking to do this as a sustainable thing, you should never count on any sort of platform visibility in any way, shape, or form. You should always count on like the worst case scenario and how to scrape by after failure with whatever you're doing.
Right.
Like if you don't fucking sell a copy, you still need to have a plan on how to pay at minimum your employees, and that hopefully yourself.
Deer Hunter makes an interesting point that like a lot of people focus on the trials of the AAA over the indie dev, because is as an indie dev it's all self-imposed, right? But I'd also make
that's harder most of the time.
But I'd also make the argument that like if we are living in this games culture that promotes the idea that anybody can do this, everybody should do this, then I feel like the self-imposition might be misled, right?
Yeah.
Hey,
no, absolutely, no, and I that's definitely a thing as well, right? That if you're working on a AAA thing, and you're a hard surface person, you make the outside of guns, and you make the outside of guns 8 hours a day, 5 years in a row for some fucking Call of Duty thing,
right?
That's if you like that and you love that, that's great. And then at some point they impose crunch, but you're not as emotionally tied to that thing that you're doing, so it becomes kind of like easier to handle in that way.
Don't tell me how I feel about that AK I modeled for 17 hours.
yeah. No, but it's also like compare that to I made this game about, I don't know, an STD I picked up. And it's an important STD for me. I don't know. You have a personal story that you want to tell in some way, shape, or form, and you really, really, really want it to be absolutely everything that you dream and think of. there's no, as Deer Hunter mentions, there's no boss that's going to tell you to not work.
Right.
You have the responsibility lies on you to be healthy about it.
And I think Joseph's got a pretty appropriate attitude towards this. As Steam is just trying to make money, and if you go into that with that expectations, you'll have it easier, right?
Yeah.
And if you just consider the entirety of Steam a large expression of the capitalist free market, you're going to have a better comprehension and understanding of how things will go.
Yeah, I mean, you should look at it as, or you should is a big fucking word, but I like to talk about it like it's a big fucking market square, and everyone is selling a white T-shirt, and you're placed at the bottom end of that fucking line of people selling the white T-shirt. So if you're coming in new and fresh, people are gonna walk past, like 7,500 fucking white shirts a year before they come to your booth.
Right.
And then you go, but it's cotton. And the next guy goes, we have Egyptian cotton though.
Right.
If you don't know what the fuck you're doing at that point, or like if you don't have a plan for it, rather, it's gonna be super hard. Like I worked 6 years as with the incubator, trying to help young teams figure shit out in some way, shape, or form. And you shouldn't expect your first game to be profitable even. Like you should aim for it, but
Right.
you should plan for it to fail.
Right.
So you have a fucking way forward when that happens, if that happens. Because if it doesn't fail, then having a plan for what to do if it fails is not a fucking problem. But if you plan for it to succeed and you don't have a plan for what to do when it fails, you're going to be in a fuck ton of hurt real fast. No, and yeah, you're saying it's not a free market, and it's not. That's true. But it's not a free market, but it's like a weird. If you look at it as a free market, it becomes easier. It doesn't have. I don't know what you mean by feudalism in this aspect. Unless you're talking about general gatekeeping, right. Because that's obviously gonna be a thing.
Yeah, I didn't fully grasp that either. But while he expands on that, Jane had an earlier question. Do you think that the indie scene has become healthier in terms of its work habits in the last 7 to 10 years that you've been in the industry, in terms of self-care and indies staving off their own personal burnout, etc.?
I think that varies extremely.
Or is it getting worse?
I don't think it's. I don't think it's. I think people are more aware to a certain point, but it's getting. I don't know. I hope it's getting better.
You hope it's getting better.
Yeah, but I'm not sure. And it's also a lot of the indie crunch is, as I mentioned before, like it's self-imposed. Yep. It doesn't matter if you know that it's bad for you. Like I ran a festival that you visited at one point, and when we did the first rendition of that festival, we were 2 people at a total of 1.5 person in terms of work per month, which is 160 hours plus 80 hours, which is 240, right? 240 hours. And we mapped out the time it would take to do the things that I wanted to do, and that I planned to do, and that I said to do, because I'm an idiot and I don't count my shit. I just wanted to do a festival. And we ended up with 1,200 hours or something, plus minus, 150, 200 hours. And that was in February. And the festival happens in May. Obviously, I'm not going to get, 240 hours over 3 months to become 1,200 hours.
I mean, if you try really hard,
Yeah, what happened was that we the project manager quit because of personal reasons. So suddenly we're left with like a half a thing. So I have 80 hours per month to do it. But I also said out loud, and I made some fucking big noises about me doing a thing, and I don't want to fail. So I just decided to fucking work, and I did for all my waking time for 3 months or so. In the end of it, like I slept, 3 hours a night, 4 or 5 hours a night occasionally, 7 days a week, to the point where I was so fucking stressed out. Like I think the last 2 weeks I drank 10, 12 bottles of whiskey and I don't know how much wine to basically just like pass out in the sofa and then wake up and just
sleep.
like wake up like 3-4 hours later when the clock went off and it's like pop back to the computer, start getting the shit together and then out and start running shit. It's not like that was it's probably one of my most destructive things that I've ever done to my body. I think it's like fucking
Festivals.
6 months of it's just 6 months of like hard work, and then the last 2 months were just like absolutely insane. I thought that would kill my relationship and put me into burnout for sure, but I managed to dodge a bullet, and festivals after that was easier because I could plan them better and kill things earlier. And that was the main takeaway for me. Is like don't you can plan to do as much as you want, but the minute you realize you're not gonna be able to do it, just fucking kill it. Like I killed so much of the festivals the last 3 months leading up to the festivals because I'm like, too much time, can't do it. Just fucking chop it now.
The one thing I will say about the self-imposed burnout and crunch and everything like that is, and this is an unfortunate reality of it, is I think um, only successful or like surviving developers really get to reach that point where they can, like I just speaking from my own personal experience, I know what I went through shipping ASM. Six years ago to the day, I remember that struggle. And when we were prepping to ship Sometimes Always Monsters, I braced for it. Changed a lot of my patterns and habits to cope better with it. And I have seen similar things happen with other experienced devs. I know there's like companies that have specifically like Clay Entertainment in Vancouver, like they have specifically designed themselves to never run a crunch again because of their early days and how bad it was and becoming aware of it. But unfortunately, I think this is a thing, like most people don't get to release multiple games. Like I see a lot of indies, they ship one, even if it's successful, they don't get another chance. And so it's one of those things that I think it's always going to be prevalent in the industry. And we need more survivors in order to like understand that that balance of self-care. It doesn't come easy.
No, but it's I mean it's the same with chefs and whatever the fuck. Like if whenever you look at like elite chefs, that it's always the backstory being I put in 7 days a week for fucking 17 years, but in a French kitchen somewhere, west of fucking Paris in a shitsville nowhere. But he taught me the bechamel, and then you have that fucking thing going, and then they make some amazing thing happen, and then we have one of those unicorn stories, anyways, and it becomes mythologized and just a part of legend. I see Joseph has
the argument about the free market. That's we can dive in.
So like a free market would look at the value of the product and the best product rise to the top, and that's not what Steam is. They owe certain companies favor, and they openly have different set of rules for big companies. So they have a different revenue share, but Steam makes a lot of money. They don't owe people favors. They don't need to owe people favors.
They don't even need EA money. They don't need Capcom money.
No, they have a fuck off capital that would like they can take that fuck off capital and ride that fuck off capital into the sunset until the fucking world dies. But what
yeah,
it's not a free market that that things will rise to the top, because a free market doesn't exist in that sense. Like that the capitalist dream of a free market doesn't exist in any way, shape, or form in any place in the world, because it's not a customer's game, and the best products rise to the top doesn't work like that. I mean, Blade Runner was a fucking critical flop when it came, and now it's a cultural hit, and that's like a point in time that we talk about a lot. Same with the games. So there's tons of shit like from old books written and whatnot.
That's why it's important to hold on to your IP rights, kids.
For sure. Yeah, don't give up your IP rights unless you're fucking securing a future with that.
Yeah, and then because 10 years later, whatever you made is going to be amazing. When people truly can appreciate your genius.
Yeah.
Never in your prime.
No, but at least you have the opportunity to do something with your IP if you can keep it. But yeah, I mean.
So then, I mean, by what? So to throw something back at Joseph, just a question. But like, by what metric would we consider something the best product? If not, I mean, because Steam sorts by sales and reviews, right? Those are the only two things that it really sorts by. And I'm curious what other metrics would determine what product would be considered best to float to the top. I don't know what other method we could use.
He mentions that it's a big part of indie dev. It's sales over time, not a big splash. Is that are you talking about like indie survival in general, or
holding on to the IP rights and like the long term?
Yeah, for sure. Like like building a good long tail, like a long term of sales, a long period of sales, even if they dwindle over time. Finding ways to reheat and get more people into it is always going to be more. It's always going to be better for you as a developer in terms of like getting cash than developing an absolutely new product immediately.
Yeah,
you should be developing that, but the way to getting to a point where you can release it is going to be much more perilous than if you have people liking the thing you do, building on top of that and including people in it, and making sure that people have access to it and feel engaged in it. Is going to be much easy is a bad word, but optimized, I don't know, like it's going to be less risky,
right,
than building something completely new.
It's been fascinating watching our trajectory. Like, we definitely had a really good launch window with ASM,
for sure.
But the long tail was definitely more significant, and I am shocked at how much of a spike we are getting now that the sequel is out. It's amazing to me. Like how I don't know if it's the algorithm playing in our favor, or what's going on, or word of mouth, but like the amount of people picking up the first game over the second one, or in addition to the second one at least, is something I did not expect. The tail is even longer. Like, I've come to accept the long tail, but the tail is even longer.
Yeah. And I mean, and those things are just take that blessing.
Yeah. Joseph says we can look at what floats to the top over time, and that's one way. You can look at the at long-term success despite being given less perseverability. I guess that's perseverance. We can say games that would be successful if people knew about them had a long
yeah,
tail.
But that's part of it, right? Because this is not just an industry about making games; it's about making games visible.
Right.
Like, it doesn't matter. So, like, say that you have a very young boy that sings beautifully, and he writes a song together with someone, and puts a beat to it, and that song is like baby, 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 ooh,
Yeah,
man.
Canada had
You
one
know,
of those ones.
Canada had one of those. I heard.
Yeah.
But say that person doesn't come with a metric fuck ton of PR, marketing, and general suits pushing the agenda into the radio channels and all that stuff. Say it's just a boy, and he sings that song for his grandma in some fucking basement.
Mm-hmm.
That's not gonna be $1 million success. Like if you're not able to engage with the market in that way, then you can build something that would be the Odyssey, or some James Joyce bullshit, some wonderful fucking thing that we all can agree on as a an epitome of human creativity, whatever the fuck. But under the current situation, like it won't take away from the creativity or the skill and the achievement, but it's not going to be a fiscal success, a financial success, unless you engage on equal, like with the fact that you're entering some sort of a market, capitalist, feudalist, whatever the fuck you want to call it, and you better bring your guns. If you release the best game we ever fucking could have the opportunity to play, something so fucking sublime that people would, their eyes would pop out of their heads, and then you put it up on your local area network at home, that's it. It's not. It's still gonna be the most sublime game ever, but it's also gonna die on that fucking computer network.
Right. So then, what is how does working with a publisher like yours change that?
It basically adds. So we basically work. If we were a band thing, like if we were in music, we would be the roadies. We go to town, we fucking slap those posters up, we build the fucking stage, we make sure the sound guy is there and that he's not drunk. We call the journalists, we pull the crowd as much as we can. All the while, you can focus on, honing your songs and becoming like a good live band. And when the fucking show is on, we will be front row, probably a little bit fucking drunk. And then when the show is over, we'll tear down the fucking stage and get everything back into the van, and we'll, get you to the next city and we'll start over. It's basically adding a team of cheerleaders. Like I think we're 50 people or so right now at Raw Fury. And if you're 3 people doing your thing, adding another, say 12 to 20 people that at some point will touch what you're doing and sort shit out. If it's PR, if it's quality control of some sort, if it's release management, or like project management, or whatever the fuck you need, basically. It's gonna give you an edge. But if that edge is enough, that's that's never clear for anyone. It's why we fund games, because we do full project funding. So you come to us, you sign with us, then you get paid to do the thing for as long as the development is. And if all goes well, we all make money. There's a cool fucking thing out that we're all happy with, and you can do whatever you want after that. And if it goes to shit, you were at least paid to do the thing you wanted for as long as you needed to do it. And when it's all over, we are the ones with a couple of $100,000 in the ground or in the hole, and then we have to figure out how to sort that out.
Right on.
But it's not gonna impact you very much.
Hey Ragnarok. My question then is, when you are looking at a game, how much do you factor in that added edge?
Very little.
Very little.
Yeah, no, it's so I'm in a position where I don't like. It's I don't need to look at commercial viability very much.
Mhm.
I do my fucking like I look at competitors and I do like an analysis of the market and all that stuff. But I mean, I've signed in the last 6 months. I've signed stuff that it's it's never gonna be a Minecraft or whatever it is. Like I'm quite sure that it will break even because I have a lot of trust in the team that is building it, and I have a lot of trust in the team that I work with at Raw Fury. Like I think all of our games are profitable right now. Maybe there's one game that's like trending towards positive, but not there just yet. But I think every game is positive, which means that everyone's getting paid. But you can't. It's still a gamble, right?
Right.
And the way we gamble is that we fund the project, and B, we take on all our own costs as well. Like we don't put any. You're never gonna be paying my salary. That never goes into any sort of deal that we do, and any person that builds like a cool PR campaign internally, or if we make a trailer internally, that doesn't go into anything that has to do with the developer budget of any sort. So that's part of our risk and our cost. So no publisher can guarantee a success, but it can still be worth it if you find that working with a publisher might give you something that you lack at the time. And some games shouldn't have a publisher because some games are already fucking like they're well on their way to do the thing themselves. So why would you split the money? Like,
Right.
doesn't make sense. And some games shouldn't aim for commercial success necessarily, because it's like it's great if it happens, but it's clear that it might not be a game that's about that. If it becomes a commercial success, that's fucking great, but occasionally you will hamper what you're trying to build if you worry too much about that. And it's a little bit the same with how I sign. If I worry too much about the commercial aspect of things, we will play a lot of safe cards, and that's not what I'm tasked to do.
Right.
I don't think they hired me to play safe cards.
I'm getting the impression that you are much more outfitted to analyze things at an artistic level than a financial commercial level.
To a certain extent, like I'm no artist, so I'm basically I'm analyzing it as someone who would go to a museum and looking at a thing would analyze whatever it is in front of them, but I don't have an art degree.
But you've played a game or two before.
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
I mean, let's not underplay. You have experience, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. But I'm not a developer, and I'm not
Right.
an artist.
Right.
Yeah.
So where I guess where you might be lacking is the comprehension of the developmental feasibility of a feature or a task or whatever. This is a thing that I think might be common to a lot of publisher.
Yeah, no, definitely. But that's also why like all of our like game producers, as we call them internally, and everyone that works with the publishing cells that we talked about earlier, they have extensive fucking time in the industry. We have people that have worked in the AAA industry for years and years and years, and they've been, they're excellent at what they did there. Their hearts are in the indie space, but what they're excellent at is looking at a thing and going, well, that's not going to take a month. That's going to be 6 months, and we can do it, but we have to buffer for it properly and make this and that. And I have a guy I know, or I know this lady, or there's this person that could come in and do this and that. So
Deer
the
Hunter
experience What?
Sorry,
Sorry.
just Deer Hunter has given me a very, very interesting idea right now.
Mm.
With the glut of content on Steam and how many quality indie games, or supposedly how many quality indie games are buried, is there not a place for a publisher to dig through there, right? Find the buried gems and surface them? Or do you think that it's too far an uphill battle because it lacks the new, right?
I don't think that's a public. I think that shit, John Walker, who founded Rock Paper Shotgun, he does a series called Hidden Gems. Give me a second. I'm gonna use my Google foo.
Okay.
John Walker. Let's see.
Because I mean, in theory,
Buried treasure. Buried treasure.
In theory,
Yeah.
that's a there's just tons of buried money there for somebody who can, like, I mean, unless there's a if the argument is that great games are getting buried in this platform.
Yeah, I mean, games are definitely great. Games are definitely getting buried for sure. I mean, I have a bunch of games that I love that didn't get the recognition they deserved at the time, and I'm sure there's more that I haven't seen. But with how the industry works, as a publisher, to kind of go in and try to surface stuff that's already done to make it feasible in terms of like deal structure and cash for the developer. I mean, I guess you don't have much to lose.
Here's a bag of money. Give us your game.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that publishers aren't necessarily the ones that are the best at doing that. I think that journalists like John Walker, for example, and other like great indie focused journalists are better at surfacing things like that. But maybe that's a new publishing model. Maybe that's something that just happened right here, right now, and that's gonna surface. Yeah. So I'm just trying to figure out like how the fuck that would go, because when a game is out, it's extremely hard to get press for it.
Right. Without the factor of new, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because we're all stuck in the fucking spectacle.
It's an obsession.
Yeah. It's bullshit. But so what you would need to do is probably spend a literal metric fuck ton on, direct ads and community building and build it up like a grassroots campaign basically, and just hope for like hitting a point of exponential growth at some point. Without and there's people doing this like for sure. Like the Landfall is a great example of people that usually didn't used to get covered a lot in the press,
right?
But built a fucking great success story on just being
on wobbly physics.
Yeah. Yeah, and it looks silly, but it's like it's impressive fucking technical shit.
No, yeah, they're talented. They're talented. No doubt.
Yeah, and also the way they do their releases and how they work with shit. Like they smart people, but they instead of spending the money on a publisher, and they're doing it themselves, and they're doing quite well. I don't think every game can pull it off in the way that they do it, but but I think you could probably take a game that is already out and look at how Landfall, and you can see it also with like SWAT, the latest SWAT game, like Rainbow Six. Sorry.
Right.
That took a year and a half before it took off.
Right.
For Honor, same thing. For them, it's it's the case of just continuing to work and just pushing money into it. but the underlying tactics of how they do it, I think, could probably be applied. But yeah, no, I'm zoning out a little bit. Sorry.
No, it is also very late. We don't have. I know. We're going long.
Yeah, but it's I think that it could be something interesting. I don't know how it would fucking work. I don't know how that deal would look.
Right.
But I mean, it just because your game didn't hit off, it's not necessarily dead. You just have to shift tactics. Adapt to the situation you're currently in.
Yeah, I don't know how this works either. But I mean, there's got to be some feasibility for it because I look at our player base. We
Yeah.
had, I think, probably the majority of our players jumped in 2016, 2 years after release.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a sizable time gap. Um, and I've seen a lot of stories where it is like the Rainbow Six story where it's like that long tail grind does eventually yield a critical mass.
Yeah. Path of Exile, I guess Grim Dawn to a certain extent.
Right. The question is here's a great example actually. There's a game I love. It's called 1 Hour 1 Life. I don't know if you've ever heard of this.
Yeah.
Jason, okay. I love this
Yeah.
game. It has a really small, dedicated community, right? But it's like, and the dev has been just like working on this thing for years now. But it's like, what does it take to hit a critical mass in this system?
I mean,
To
be honest, this is what Dwarf Fortress and fucking Minecraft did as well. Like Minecraft is also talked about a little bit, like overnight success, and that's not the case at all. Like Minecraft was built in iterations over several years, being sold first for nothing and then for like €2, and then slowly ramping up the price as more and more people got into it. So it's but that was obviously but that was also like without being covered a lot in the press in the beginning. And regardless of how problematic shit got around that, the business case is interesting still. Up until the point where it hit critical mass, because then it gets uninteresting, because then it's just a fucking wheel that keeps on churning. And they've done amazing work with the United Nations and so on. So like nothing to take away from that. But I'm generally interested in like I have zero money I have enough money to keep on doing what I want to do, and I don't need to worry about my rent. That space, that time period of money is what I care about,
right?
And where I think it's interesting. Anything after that is like, well, fucking easy mode.
Cool.
You want to do the Dark Souls of life? You do it from I don't have money for my rent, up to the point where you have money for rent, and maybe the occasional nice beer.
Well, I guess, does anybody else in the chat have any final questions? I guess we should probably wind down. I know it is wildly late for you, and yeah. If there's anybody with anything else, we'll go over that. But I don't know. I want to say thanks, I guess, first and foremost, for coming on. I know.
Yeah, I'm happy to.
It's fun.
Yeah, it's been a fucking while, so it's nice to check in and see what's up.
Yeah.
And it's also nice to have a place where it's less of a worry to talk about these things openly than, for example, Twitter, where any text can be misinterpreted.
Right.
Here we can actually talk back and forth and get to an actual understanding. Thank you, chat, for having patience with my internet.
Well, you're welcome back anytime.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you can can move from the fucking United States to a normal working hour, that would be great. But
Yeah.
otherwise, I'm sure we can find time.
You know what? Honestly, we have enough international people in our community that they would really appreciate me just doing some like super late night streams. But yeah,
No, but you should do this during normal work or normal-ish work
yeah,
hours.
I'm trying to get bedtimes and stuff like that in my life, and it's going pretty
Yeah,
well.
I mean, this is like the normal time where I would kill my workday anyways currently, as I'm doing like shift works with the baby duty during the day and then work evening/night, and then yeah, and now I have 3 to 4 hours before the baby wakes up.
Well, all right, I won't keep you to any longer then. Thank you very
No,
much.
don't worry about it. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, you can tune in. I'll be back on Saturday at 1 p.m. with another RPG Maker live dev stream. We're going to be doing more of the content. Actually, I'll be finished the current content update. Hopefully, I'll put out a new patch or a new update this week, and then we'll start more stuff on Saturday. But I'll see you then. Thank you guys, and I'll catch you later.